welcome to another edition of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Craig.
And I'm Todd.
And today we watch the film, oh gosh, I don't even know if it's fair to call it a film. Let's say movie.
The amusement.
Yeah. The Chopping Mall from 1986. This was Todd's choice, so Todd, explain yourself.
Oh man, I love the director of this film, Jim Wynorski. This is his second movie. He did a movie called The Lost Empire before this, but his dream growing up was to become basically work for Roger Corman. Mm-hmm. He loved his movies growing up, and he wanted to be a B-movie director, and gosh darn it, he got his dream.
Yeah, I guess he did.
He actually fell right into Roger Corman's lap, essentially went to Hollywood and started cutting trailers for him, cutting trailers for his films. And then one of the distributors came by and to Corman's studio and said, I want a movie that takes place in a shopping mall, a killer in a shopping mall movie. And so Jim Wynorski said that if you'll let me direct it, I'll write it really cheap. And so he wrote it, they let him direct it, and this boosted him down a path which has led to, the guy's made like 5 or 6 movies a year.
Really?
He's still making movies. And he started out in Roger Corman's studio making movies for him and then started doing his own stuff. He is an interesting character. The movies that he started making starting at about the turn of the century, I can say that now, right? Right. The 2000, were all these sort of softcore parodies like The Witches of Brestwick and The Bear Wench Project and things like that. So he took this, I think, very disappointing turn towards just getting like adult film stars and putting them in softcore roles and making these parody films. And that went for about a decade or two. And lately he's been doing more of these big monster movies like Sharknado type movies. You know, if you look at his newer ones, it's these goofy Piranha Don or something like that films. But I think that his movies back in the 80s and going into the 90s are just more fun. They're super campy. They're clearly written to be campy.
Right.
Like he's intentionally sticking a whole bunch of humor in here. It's not the kind of it's so bad it's funny kind of funny. It's the I'm almost intentionally making this so bad that it's funny, but I'm also throwing in a lot of winks to you so that you know that I know that this is totally goofy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally. Absolutely.
And this is actually, I love this movie, but there's another movie you and I are going to watch, which is one of my all-time favorite bad movies called Sorority House Massacre 2. All right. He is behind that, and it is just so perfect on so many levels as a bad movie.
Oh, gosh, that's funny. Well, if it rivals this one, I'll take your word for it. I mean, yeah, this is a really campy movie. I mean, you can see that he was given a little wink and a nod to Corman at some point in the movie. One of the young couples is watching one of Corman's films, right? Mm-hmm. Like Attack of the Giant Crab. Yeah, something like that. And that other movie that you had mentioned that he had done before, that movie poster is featured prominently throughout the film. So
it's goofy. There are movie posters all through the film for no good reason. Like it's like wherever they had a bare wall and they didn't have any way to decorate it, they just slap up some movie poster.
It's funny. I mean, it takes place in a mall. The premise is so simple. We open up with kind of this training seminar where mall employees are being told about their new security system, which is these robots, these 3 robots that are going to patrol at night while the mall is locked down from 12 until 6. We see a video demonstration where this bad guy robber robs the jewelry store in the mall, and then one of these robots chases after him. The bad guy shoots at him but the robot isn't affected in any way, and eventually the robot stuns him and he's detained. And that's how it's supposed to work. All of these people, I guess they were mall employees, execs maybe, something.
Or just interest. Yeah, it's hard to know. Interested people from the community or something?
I don't know. But they're concerned about safety and whatnot, and of course the designer, the engineer, whoever's in charge of this assures them, oh no, nothing could possibly go wrong.
I'm trying to think if this was pre or post RoboCops.
It was 1986. I'm not sure when RoboCop came out, but it's funny because it just looking back now at the 80s at what we thought technology was going to be.
Oh my gosh.
These robots, are basically just kind of like giant trash bins on conveyor belts.
They're like a cross between a trash bin and a tank.
Yeah, right.
They've got these tank treads, these tired, what do you call that?
I don't know.
Whatever, treads.
Right.
They're riding on those, and they sound like lawnmowers when they're going around.
Yeah.
Which is all the sillier that they seem to be able to sneak up on people so easily throughout this movie.
And they've got these pincher hands that they click like threateningly, like that's their big threat. A little bit reminiscent of Short Circuit, but even Short Circuit was more advanced.
Way
than
more
this.
advanced, yeah.
Also, really reminiscent of the robot from Wes Craven,
Deadly Friend.
Deadly Friend.
Yeah,
Deadly Friend,
it does.
right.
It looks a lot like the Deadly Friend robot.
Yeah, and it's set up with, I guess, tasers, and at one point one of the scientists says something like a sleep something that can knock somebody out, tranquilizer or something. And lasers.
And they just inexplicably start shooting lasers.
Right.
At some point. Like the pew, 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 kind of like Star Wars guns.
Oh, yeah. And the effects are just ridiculously low budget and bad. When they do shoot their lasers, I mean, it's obvious that these were just like animated in post. It's funny.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be, they call them killbots, and they're supposed to be these ominous, scary things. And they go at about maybe 5 miles an hour.
You should be able to outrun these no problem.
Oh, right. Like, anytime characters are running away from them, like, it's obvious that they're doing everything that they can to run as slowly as possible and, like, turn around and look behind them to make sure it's still back there. And there are some scenes where it kind of looks like it's only the robot in frame, so there's not a human in frame, so they clearly just speed up the film to make it look like the robots are going faster. They don't really seem threatening at all, but, of course, something does go wrong.
Yeah.
There's a big electrical storm, and I guess, generators or something on top of the building are struck by lightning, which causes a short, which turns the robots evil.
I guess it flipped the evil switch on the robots or something. Yeah, I think it's another one of those RoboCop type deals where you think you've programmed it correctly to not injure people, but even more so than the RoboCop robots, these guys have it seems like their MO.
Yeah.
What is it, the first night maybe that they're on patrol or something?
Right.
They're just going to kill people.
Yeah, and at first they kill whoever the guy who was like manning the computer or whatever, and then somebody else comes in to replace him. The body's gone, so I guess the robots clean up after themselves too. And they kill him, and then...
Oh, well, that second guy, though, it was the funniest scene, because it probably took 10 minutes with him sitting there, walking in, talking to himself, sitting down. And the way they have these robots positioned in the computer room is... I think if you're either claustrophobic or you're really nervous about these things, it's the worst way.
Right.
The computer panel is facing the robots, and the robots are facing the computer panel, and you, as a person operating the computer, is going to sit in between them.
With your back to the robots.
With your back to the robots, and they're constantly... The robots are ominously, like, coming on, but coming off, or clicking their fingers, but not. Like, they're
looking at one another. Like the robots like turn and look at each other. Like, they don't have eyes or anything. They just got like this red strip where their lasers shoot out of. Like, they're giving each other looks, like sly looks. It's pretty funny.
And this poor guy, who all this is making so much noise, but then he doesn't hear it.
Right.
But what he does hear is a little click or something, and he turns around, and then he goes back to reading his book, and turns back around and goes back to reading his book, turns around and looks some more, goes back to reading his book, and you're like, okay, come on, when is this scene gonna end?
Right. And eventually it just kills him, and we move on. Of course, then we've got to get some young, sexy people lined up to start getting killed off. So the way that gets established is that these mall employees, I think there's 4 couples, are going to stay late after the mall closes, and they're going to have a party in one of the furniture stores. And, you've got like the sexy couple with the guy who's, real buff and smacking his gum all the time, and his girlfriend who's kind of the sex bomb. And then you've got 2 more couples who are just kind of a little bit more nondescript. One brown-haired one darker-haired couple. And then you've got the cute, sweet, innocent couple, and that is Allison and Ferdy. And they're kind of the nerdy of the group. And so of course, that if anybody's going to make it, it's going to be them.
Right?
Yeah.
They're the more innocent ones.
And then, so they start their party, and it's a pretty interesting party. I've never been to a party like this.
Well, it has to be said that part of the security system is that the mall has these big steel, sci-fi steel doors that slam shut. So after you're in the mall after a certain point, you're basically stuck and locked in, which is a terrible design.
Right. Doesn't make any sense.
But they all work at the same, they all work in the mall. And three of these guys work in the furniture store, and the other two are in work, I don't know where the fourth girl worked. And
I think, like, the dark-haired couple that seemed maybe a little bit older, I think that they did, like, car repairs or something, like, out of the mall or something like that.
They came back in. It was, like, probably the Sears Auto Center in the parking lot.
Right, yeah.
Uh-huh. And so, they decide they're going to throw a party that night and lock themselves in, and I don't know, they had some beer, but they didn't really drink much of it. And
no, they danced for like
some music.
They danced for like 3 minutes, and then everybody jumped into bed. Not all the same bed, but it's a furniture store. Yeah. It's like a showroom. So, like, here's one couple kind of over in one corner, and then maybe 10, 15 feet away is another couple on a couch or something. And they're all just getting it on, except for, of course, the sweet, innocent ones, Ferdy and Allison, who are watching the Corman movie, and she's getting scared and kind of snuggling up to him, and he's, being a total gentleman, and I think eventually maybe they smooch a little bit too.
They seem to, or at least the implication is that they do. I think this movie is not without art, though, because that is a cool scene where they go from bed to sofa to other bed to those two sitting on that other sofa. It's
all one shot, isn't it?
I think it is. Yeah, they move from one to the other. It's pretty impressive, actually, for this kind of movie to have an all one shot deal where you're getting a little bit of byplay with the different characters, and the writing is really goofball.
Oh my gosh. Well,
the lines are...
It's fun to watch because they use such antiquated 80s slang.
They do. Bodacious and bitchin'.
Right. Allison's friend, Susie, she's the one that's going to be setting Allison up with Ferdy, and she says something like,
"Hey, would I set you up with a slime dog or something?" "No way, babe." It is babe, isn't it?
Just stuff that really seemed even really artificial, even for the 1980s. And the dialogue is just, the script, it's fun in how silly it is, but they're being chased around by these robots, and they'll just stop to hang out at a place for a while, chit chat. It's like every time they escape the robots, then they just move somewhere else and just wait for them to show up again.
Pretty much, yeah. They're being pursued. I love that line when the two of them are on the sofa making out.
"You smell like pepperoni."
Well, if that's the way you feel.
Wait a minute.
What?
I like pepperoni.
Oh. In that case.
Then she takes her top off. And that's, we get a lot of that. Well, actually, not as much as you might think from a movie like this. There's definitely TNA.
There's not a lot, though.
Not so much.
Not so much as in his later years.
Right.
Jim Wynorski, one of his famous quotes is he says that breasts are the cheapest special effect we have.
It's funny that you said that he kind of went on to do softcore porn stuff, because there were several times in this movie where if you just lifted out the 15 or 20 seconds, you might have thought that it was lifted from a porn.
Exactly.
That's kind of the quality of acting and writing, that we've got here.
You're absolutely right.
We have a little cameo. What's the guy's name? He was the old neighbor from Gremlins, right?
Yeah, Dick Miller.
Yeah.
And you'll see him in a lot of Roger Corman. He's one of Corman's, staple guys. Always playing the same type of character.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, he plays a janitor, and he's after the two, computer guys. He's the first one to get it, and it's kind of a funny scene where he's like bantering with this robot, and then the robot shoots its taser, and it misses him, but it lands in the puddle of water where he's mopping, so he gets electrocuted. And again, it's that classic 80s electrocuting look.
Animated kind of thing, yeah. He falls down, and the robot goes, "Thank you, have a nice day." And that's a running gag through the whole thing. Every time it kills somebody, it says that.
Right.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's silly. I mean, they clearly knew what they were doing. They weren't trying to make this a serious, scary movie, and it's not scary.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really nothing scary about it at all. It's more just a fun ride. After that, the plot basically is these kids get picked off one by one, in kind of a variety of ways. The first one to go is Brennett, I think his name. He's the hot guy with, who's got the sexy girlfriend. And she sends him out to go get cigarettes. He goes out there. One of the robots shows up. There's not much to it. The robot tases him or puts him to sleep or something, then cuts his throat.
Yeah, and that's another 80s thing. He's going to get cigarettes out of the vending machine.
Yeah, and they're $1, and he's like, $1.25.
Like, if only.
Right. Oh, man. So, and then his girlfriend comes out looking for him. She stumbles upon him, finds his dead body. She starts running back to the store, and the robot is in pursuit of her, shooting the lasers.
That's when the lasers come out. And
right.
You're like, what the heck?
And, I get one of the robot has, red lasers, and the other one has a blue laser. It's really funny. And the other thing that's funny about that is the robots chase them around the mall throughout the whole rest of the movie, and they're constantly shooting lasers at them, and very, very rarely do they hit.
Yeah. These are the most inaccurate robots.
Right. Sometimes the characters will literally be 5-10 feet in front of them, standing, not moving, just standing there, with a gun or something, and the lasers are flying all around, but they never get hit.
Except for her.
Yeah, except for her. She does. Her head gets blown off.
The most impressive special effect of the whole movie.
Right. Yes, it is. And that's the rest of the kids see this happen through the store window, so now they know they're in pursuit, and so they all run off together. And from then on, it's really just cat and mouse.
It really is. Yeah, they crawl up in the
vents,
the
air
above
shaft.
The air shaft.
The girls do,
and they think that the robots are cranking up the heat because they know they're up there. It's all very lamely played.
Oh, yeah.
It's all pretty bad. But yeah, it's just cat and mouse. I love some of the jokes though when they go through and the guys decide that they need to get weapons.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to get out of here, so we need to go get weapons. So they run to the sporting goods store, which is called Peck and Paws. Reference to Sam Peckinpah, which is hilarious. And they get all manner of, I don't know, man. Can you buy
assault rifles?
These assault rifles and things in stores?
Probably not anymore.
Even in the 80s, really? I don't know.
I don't know. But, it is funny because, it's just the sporting goods store where all of these weapons are just right out on the shelves, stocked right next to the ammo.
That's right.
And so they arm themselves to the teeth. One guy's got the bullet strap, down across his torso, and he's got a semi-automatic rifle, and one of them's got a great big shotgun, and one of them's got a Magnum handgun or something.
Yeah.
And they get all strapped up, and one of them says something like,
"Let's go send those f***ers a Rambogram."
And there are funny lines like that throughout. I mean, just silly, just pure cheese.
Yeah. It's cute, too, the way that the movie changes tone just a little bit when these guys decide they need to start fighting back. It suddenly becomes less of a horror movie and more of an action movie. Mm-hmm. They're trying to gun these robots down, and nothing gets these things. Absolutely nothing. They think that they've knocked it out. They toss a propane tank down, shoot the propane tank, and that blows up, and the robot tips over, and I think they're standing over it, and he says, "What's that?" "Robot blood."
No further explanation. I guess these robots just bleed something.
But that robot wasn't even dead. It comes back up. And so it does a pretty good job, I think, the film, of this relentlessness of these robots, even though they are not credible necessarily. Right. Within the movie world, it does a pretty good job of keeping them relentless. You really have no idea. It's not like, well, why don't you just tip them over? Or why don't you just do this? Because nothing is working on these guys, and they're certainly trying.
Yeah. And that's the thing, with today's technology and a better budget, the story might seem more plausible if it weren't so obvious that they could easily outrun these things if they just wanted to. Or if, they will, like I said before, they will get away. They'll open up one of the garage-style doors to one of the closed stores and then get inside and close the door behind them. And these robots have gotten through, like, steel doors and stuff before, but they'll just go in there then and sit and wait until they come in. They're like, oh crap, now they're here, we better do something.
In the meantime, while they've been chatting, the robots have been blowtorching their way slowly through this thing.
Right.
Like, they didn't notice.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't hear until the robots were done and they pushed it through. Oh, crap, we need to move now. But it does allow them to sit around and chat a little bit and have some great lines, such as...
I guess I'm just not used to being chased around a mall in the middle of the night by killer robots.
Yeah, that's not common experience, I guess. And other funny things too, like at first the girls and the guys get separated. The girls are in the vents, the guys are doing their gun thing. Eventually they get back together, and there's lots of shootouts throughout. But at one point they trap one of the robots in a elevator that they have rigged up with like gas tanks, I guess.
more of those propane tanks. Yeah,
and they're trying to, they get it trapped in there and they're trying to hit the propane tanks, and Allison, the cute nice girl, grabs like the big 357 Magnum from one of the guys and like very Dirty Harry style, like points it with both hands and shoots and blows up whatever it was they were trying to blow up, and somebody goes, wow, that was awesome, and she's like, my dad's a Marine. So I shoot through, Magnums all the time. Just goofy stuff like that. Then they just get picked off. I mean, I was writing down Susie, they try to attack the robots with cans of gasoline. That doesn't work.
They've made like Molotov cocktails out of them, and that doesn't work. And then Susie, the one who ends up getting burned up because she falls, and she's got one of those
she gets
tanks.
Hit by a laser in the leg, and she falls. Her friends are about 5 feet away from her. They do nothing at all to help her. They just stand there and watch while she gets, the laser hits the gas can and she gets burned up. Yeah,
while the robot, in a rare moment of accuracy, looks at it, shoots the gas can right away.
Exactly. Then, because Susie is dead, Greg, her boyfriend, gets all ticked off and kind of wants to go off rogue, and they're all trying to follow him. He has the idea that they need to find, like, the central computer that controls the robots. If they can get that shut down, then everything will be okay. So he takes off running, and they take off running behind him. He runs up to the top of the escalator on the 3rd floor and turns around and is like, come on, you guys!
The coast is clear!
Meanwhile, the robot just rolls up right behind him, throws him off the balcony. He's done. Soon after, again, it's just running around. There's not much to describe. They're running around. They run all around this mall. Linda, she gets killed by a laser. Walden, her husband, has one of the weirdest death scenes. Walden sees, I think that's his name, the mechanic guy. He sees Linda get killed, and then, like, the way that... How did it play out?
So the robot actually got a little disabled because there was some electrical... Did they shoot something at it?
They set it up.
Oh, yes! Yeah, that was strange. They set up a row of mannequins, and they raised the lid on the store or whatever, and there's a row of mannequins there, so the two robots are there, and they're shooting at the mannequins, and they're behind the mannequins shooting at them. And behind the mannequins themselves is something covered up by a sheet.
Right.
And they whip that off, and it's a bunch of mirrors they've set up. And so apparently these lasers bounce off of mirrors.
Right. These killer lasers.
They've gone through everything else, but mirrors hit the robot. It hits the robot back. It's short-circuited, essentially, so it's spinning and spinning. And then Chuck, like an idiot, because his girlfriend was the one who just got shot, almost goes suicidal and jumps on a security cart.
Yeah.
Which is only about 20 feet away from the robot.
And it's like the size of a coffee table. I don't know what he was planning. It's like one of those things that you see, like, the security, like, driving the elderly around on a mall or something like that.
And he's driving it towards the robot as he's shooting at it. I don't know if he thought he was going to drive it past it.
I have no idea.
I don't even know why he thought that was a good idea in the first place, but he just slowly drives right into it.
Really slowly.
And electrocutes himself by contact.
So then we're down to Ferdy and Allison. And they go off. They're still looking for the computer, and she says, we'd probably have better luck if we split up. because that's always a great idea in a horror movie. So they do, and he goes off looking one way, she goes off looking another way. She's looking for this supercomputer, but apparently she thinks she's going to find it in like these storage rooms that are full of junk. She gets cornered by one of the robots, and she screams for Ferdy, and he comes running, and he like distracts the robot away, and the robot starts chasing him. And again, just he takes off like a fire extinguisher or something off the wall and tosses it at the robot, and of course it just bounces right off. The robot picks it up and, I guess with great force, throws it back at him, hits him directly in the chest. He falls over backwards, and you see blood coming out of his head. And so I think that it's one of those, you're supposed to think that he's dead, but it's so obvious he's not going to be.
We know he's coming back.
Right, you know he's going to be back
And
around.
these robots, I'm not sure how they sense life. I'm not sure how they sense human life. If they're distracted by mannequins and they drive up to this guy and think that he's dead, even though he's not, and so they drive away and chase her. And then it becomes she's the final girl, we think, and she gets chased all around. She has a pretty good stunt there, too, and apparently she did her own stunts.
That fall?
Yeah, that fall from the third floor, I believe, all the way down onto a... In fact, when I was reading that when they set up this stunt, Jim Wynorski, the director, volunteered to be the first one to do it, as long as they did it from the second story. And he did. He fell and got up and everything. Later learned that he broke a rib.
Oh, wow.
But he didn't say anything to anybody.
I'm like, what are you going to say? I broke a rib, but you'll be all right. The robot's chasing her all around. At one point, she hangs from, like, the balcony. You know, this is a real mall. It was all shot in a real mall. And it's it takes you right back to the 80s. It really does. You know, there's really not this, at least as far as I know, there's not the same kind of mall culture that there was when we were kids.
No.
You know, now with Amazon, people do all their shopping from their computer screen.
But you just go to a mall to hang out.
Right.
You know, you'd go, it would be like a day thing.
Oh, yeah.
At least my family.
Definitely.
We'd go to church, and then afterwards we'd go to the mall.
Right. And eat lunch in the food court.
Yeah,
and,
wander around.
Everybody kind of go off their own way, and you kind of converge at different spots throughout the day.
It was kind of fun, because it was its own little city that I guess parents felt okay with letting their kids run around in there. Like they might let their kids run around in a department store, which is so much cooler than a department store because it's like a little city, and you have all these stores, and you have a food place, and you have a fountain, and you can sit, and they even used to have concerts in malls.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah.
That's why I enjoy watching movies like this that take place in old 80s malls. And it fits into that fantasy that I always had as a kid, that you probably did too, of what would it be like to stay in the mall overnight?
Right, to have free reign,
Yeah, to just everything, eat this food and go into this store and do that. And this movie, I think, taps into that fantasy a little bit, which I think, for me anyway, is part of what makes it fun to watch.
It is fun to watch, but it definitely dates it. You know,
Yes.
it shows our age for sure.
Oh, and some of there are real stores in here, along with the fake ones that go by in the background of the scenery. I thought part of the fun was just I remember Florsheim shoes, and I remember this. And one scene when she's hanging from the balcony and the robot's kind of patrolling back and forth, we get this shot, and in the background, one of the stores is clocks and music boxes. And I don't think that's a store that they created.
Yeah.
I think it was the actual store. And I thought, how quaint.
Yeah.
A store that would actually sell clocks and music boxes you'll never see today.
No. And it's funny because I noticed that too, and I was, just like you, I was really kind of trying to look just, for nostalgia purposes, and some of them seem to be clearly made up, but some of them not. And that's kind of surprising. Anymore, corporations are really careful with their brands and what they'll allow to be shown on screen and whatnot, and it doesn't seem like they really had any problem with that here. I mean, it was shot in a real mall. They were given permission to shoot overnight so long as they didn't destroy anything and so long as everything was cleaned up by the time that they left in the morning. Yeah. And I guess the maintenance people weren't very happy about it, but the owner of the mall thought it was fun and was happy to let them use it.
Well, when you talk about mall culture, I like the way this movie starts out. I think the movie is clever in so many ways, making use of the limited budget that they obviously had. First off, I thought that the very beginning part was cool, how we think we're watching the movie with this killer bot, but it's actually a film strip that they're showing these people at the security convention. But then after that, as the credit sequence goes on, we get what is supposed to be sort of a pastiche of mall culture, right? There's a woman carrying drinks, walking along
through the food court,
and it cuts to a kid skateboarding through the mall, and in the midst of all of this, like, funny things are happening, right? Like, the woman, by the end of this, we keep cutting back to her, and she's still getting bumped around, and then finally she gets to the table, and that's when she ends up losing the drinks, like, right in someone's lap. And,
which always happened, right?
yeah, exactly.
Somebody was always dropping their tray in those, because they were so busy and bustling.
There's, like, a couple making out like crazy on a bench, and it pans over to an older couple on another bench, and she's kind of looking at them, and so she turns right around and starts to give her husband a kiss, and I thought that part was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, even the little stuff like two of the girls, Allison and Susie, work in one of the restaurants in the mall, and so you kind of get a little glimpse at their waitress life and the kind of people that come in there.
Come on, sweetheart. Give it to me. What do you got? Andiamo.
Can I get two Uncle Luigi Belly Busters, a double anchovy pizza, and an order of garlic logs?
So gross. What in Hobby Brain ordered that?
Guy over there.
Oh, God. I should have known. That Orca Beach is here every night.
Always trying to snag some skin. Play it safe, Allison. Serve at arm's length.
If you get my drift.
Thanks for the advice.
The guys work in a furniture store, and you kind of see their dynamic. You know, there's Ferdy is, you know, the nerdy one who's really concerned about doing the job right, and the other two are like, this is a stupid job, who gives a stuff.
He ain't gonna know diddly unless you tell him. And you ain't gonna tell him, are ya?
Hey, look, don't force me to pull rank.
Oh, I'm shaky.
You know, Brennan, you're becoming a real candidate for prickhood. Look, guys, this party is gonna happen, but we need a little teamwork, okay? Besides, if the place looks like shit on Monday, it's all our asses. You got the beer?
Greg, come on. Dude, the fridge is packed.
All right, good.
So yeah, for that reason, it is kind of a little time capsule of a day gone by.
Yeah, it makes it fun, I think.
Right. Well, you know, so we're down to the final girl, and basically she runs around. You know, she does this fall from like the third level. She lands in one of those tent setups, just one of the little kiosks in the mall, and then she runs into a paint store. I don't remember there being paint stores in the mall, but okay.
Yeah. It was a different time.
Yeah. And she goes in the course of about 15 seconds, opens up about 50 cans of paint.
That's another one of those great scenes where cuts to the robot coming towards her, cuts to her opening 2 paint cans, cuts to the robot going towards her. It's like, please, I've seen this mall. The robot is not that far away.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but paint cans are sometimes really hard to open.
True. And the thing that cracked me up was like, you know, everything else had failed. Nothing had stopped these robots. And what's going to stop them? Arts and crafts. So she opens up all these things of paint and throws them all on the floor, like underneath this big pile of paint. And she's pouring turpentine and stuff down there too. And then she kind of does that "come and get me" thing, and the robot comes in and rolls right into her pile, her puddle. She sneaks around, and then at some point she had gotten a flare when they were setting up those Molotov cocktails.
She tucked a flare down her
in
shirt.
her cleavage, right? It's the goodest place as any, I guess.
Might as well. Didn't think to whip it out until now,
right?
But,
and she takes it out and lights it, and classic, you know, just says,
Have a nice day!
and throws it into the puddle, and it explodes. Like the whole store explodes, and then the robot is gone.
And then it's like, oh wow, this moment she walks away from the smoke, and then you hear this, hey! And she looks up, and there's her boyfriend waving it down at him, Ferdy.
Yes, with a great big smile on his face.
Like, good job, honey. Like he'd been watching her that whole time.
Yeah, he's got a roll of toilet paper held behind his head, I guess, soaking up the blood, but he's fine. And then, like, they kind of come together in the big central lobby area of the mall, and they embrace, and they're in love, and all of a sudden it's midday, apparently, because it's bright as all get out.
I guess we needed more light for that final scene, huh?
And then that's it. Cut to credits. I mean, it's that simple. It's a simple, goofy movie. Little goofy lines throughout. Yeah, I hadn't seen this. I know that I had seen it. because this is one of those movies, we talk about this all the time, you know, the 80s were such an excellent time for box art, for the VHS tapes, and this one is just permanently cemented in my mind. You know, it's just like an illustrated, animated shopping bag full of like dismembered body parts, like an eyeball hanging out of the top.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as a kid, oh my gosh, I just thought that was the coolest thing. I thought this is going to be the best movie ever.
Yeah.
And I saw it when I was a kid. I mean, I must have been really young. And I think I only saw it that once. This was the first time I've revisited it since then. And it's something.
You know what I overlooked on that box art always as a kid, I never noticed, and I only noticed it while I was looking it online today, was that the hand holding the bag is a robot hand. I mean, it's not an accurate depiction of the robots in the movie, but it's clearly making that connection. Did you ever notice?
I don't think I did.
I don't think I did either.
I looked it up last night when we were talking about doing this, and I wanted to show my friend because he couldn't remember. And yeah, I noticed that too. I don't know. Surely it was always there.
Yeah, of course.
So,
but it was just not, it's not what drew your eye.
Right.
The eye drew your eye.
Yeah, absolutely. And it did its job. I mean, I wanted to see that movie so bad, and I'm sure I finally just talked my dad into to renting it for me.
Well, Chopping Mall is a clever title. It was originally called Killbots, and released to the theaters, as Roger Corman's movies always were, up until about the 90s, when everything kind of started to go straight to video. And it just didn't do very well. And they chalked it up to maybe it's the title. And the poster for it had robots on the front. And think about it, this was Transformers time.
Right.
They wondered, maybe people were thinking that this wasn't a horror film, but it was more of a kid's animated robot movie.
Right.
So that's when they changed it to Chopping Mall. And it actually did fairly well. So much so that they thought about doing a sequel after the rebound.
Oh, wow.
You know, didn't happen.
Yeah.
But apparently did fairly well on VHS. You know,
yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And I mean, it was really low budget, so I mean, if they made any money on it, I have no idea what the numbers are, but I think $800,000 or something budget, which is really low.
And you know that Roger Corman's totally famous for that. He, to this day, claims that he's never made a movie that didn't make money. He's the guy who would make a movie under budget and quicker, and he'd still have actors and people under contract, so he'd hire somebody to quick whip up another script using the same actors, the same sets, the same locations, and make a second movie.
Yeah, that's funny. You told me that before, but I didn't put the two together.
Yeah, it's interesting. I could see that was a kind of a dream of mine too as I was a kid. Honestly, I really wanted. When I was thinking about being a filmmaker, my idea of a filmmaker was doing the more interesting films, you know, not the artsy kind of films. Right. It was more about, let's do some of these horror films, let's do action movies, and let's do them like Roger Corman did, you know, so we could really pump them out and make them fun and exciting. Because that's one thing, his movies never are boring, usually.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very specific type of movie. It's a drive-in movie. It's we were talking about you thought that you had seen it on USA Up All Night, which again, if you're younger than 30, you won't know what that is. But Gilbert Gottfried and this busty blonde, what was her name?
Rhonda Shear.
USA
Up All Night.
Yeah. They would host these. I mean, it was kind of an Elvira kind of thing, but it was campier, and they didn't just do horror. They did screwball comedies and stuff too. But it was really late night, like 1 or 2 in the morning, on cable, and they would host these cheeseball movies, and it was so much fun. It was exciting as a kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, to stay up late, way past your bedtime, and your parents letting you stay up late on the weekend and watch these goofy movies. I remember so many times waiting and trying so hard to stay awake for it to come on, and then probably 20 minutes into the movie I'd be asleep.
It would always happen. But it was a ritual for me too, and my parents let me do it, and we, it was just right there on the sofa, get a blanket and sit there, and usually they'd show 2, wouldn't they?
I think so.
Like 1 or 2 back to back, and to try to stay up for the second one was almost impossible.
Yeah. But it's that kind of thing. That's what you're getting into. It's not high quality. The acting is not great. In fact, at times it's a little bit painful.
Yeah.
The dialogue, again, same thing, a little bit painful at times. But that's cheesy and corny and kind of fun too. So you're not going into this with high expectations.
Correct. And there's some interesting actors in here. John Turleski, who's the kind of the jockey, jerky guy, Mike. I think he's on television.
Is he now?
He's the one who you said, he looks really familiar to me.
He did, and I went and looked him up, and he's got quite a few credits, like 40-some acting credits, and I didn't
He does a lot of directing, too.
Does he? Mm-hmm. I think that he was in sitcoms in the 80s and 90s. He was on The Facts of Life and Empty Nest, and I imagine that's probably where I know him from. I didn't really recognize any of his movie titles.
Well, he has that face, you know. He's got that jockey, kind of good-looking, chiseled, could probably play a really nice guy, could also play a real jerk.
Right, and he's got great hair. He's got, like, this great, like... I don't even know how to describe it. You know, just this huge head of soft flowing 80s hair. It's awesome.
It's like a football player hair.
Typical.
And apparently, again, if you're familiar with Jim Wynorski's movies, if you've seen, I think Vice Squad, there is a couple in the very beginning of the film who you never see again, but they're sitting watching the presentation. And they're like the comic relief. Mm-hmm. They're quipping really bad lines back and forth to each other. It's supposed to be funny, but it doesn't really come across that way. You will see those two in a lot of these films. And I can't remember her name right off the bat, but she pretty much stars in the Vice Squad series of movies, which was sort of a sex comedy, police academy type knockoff, but with women, busty women, basically.
Yeah, are you talking about those two that were sitting in the audience in that opening scene? They looked familiar to me, and I wrote their names down because there's a little bit of focus on them in the beginning. I thought that they were going to be central characters, but no, they're just there in the beginning, I think, for a little comic relief. I was reading the cast list on IMDb. Are those two, did you say that they repeated in several, because there were a couple of characters that, and I assume it's probably them, that it said they're playing the same roles, actually. They're playing the same characters.
It could very well be. I don't remember enough about all the other movies.
Right, and not that it's important at all.
But she has a very striking look to her. She has a kind of a mannish face. She has very chiseled, very distinct features and things. But she's in a lot. Vice Squad was another one of those movies that would come on USA Up All Night as well, and she was the head police officer or something in those movies. And then apparently, and we didn't even learn this until we were going through the cast list, so we went back to the movie to see it, Angus Scrimm has a very, very small role.
Tiny cameo. And you wouldn't even... we're fans of Angus Scrimm, big fans, and we didn't notice him at all. I mean, you don't see him up close. It's really just kind of a faraway shot
from the back.
But if you're paying attention and you listen, it's definitely him. He's got that distinctive voice, and so that's cool.
And then one of the actors in here, I'm not sure which one, actually went on to do, I believe, Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors. And then the fourth one as well reprised his role, and I believe this was his first film.
Gotcha.
So,
Dream Warriors, that was one of my favorite entries from that series. It's a good one.
I cannot wait for us to see Sorority House Massacre 2. We might need to bump that up on the list after seeing this, because to see it after this, these are the two films I would recommend that you would want to watch to get an idea of a certain kind of film you don't see made anymore. It's camp. It's intentional camp, I should say. It's really intended to be a comedy in many ways, but it surprises you because it's marketed as pure horror. And it makes for a fun film. And this is the kind of thing that Jim Wynorski really excels in, and why he's a director that I continue to come back to. Not for his later stuff, but his earlier stuff is really quite fun.
That's good. Well, we'll have to check it out. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, you can find all of our previous episodes on iTunes or Stitcher. You can find us on Facebook. We're on Google Plus every once in a while. We would love to hear your feedback. We would love to see you liking and sharing the podcast. If you enjoy it, share it with a friend. But until next time, I'm Craig.
And I'm Todd.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.